everyone. Welcome to MSP Business School. My name's Brian Doyle, and I'm one of your co-hosts. So with me today, I've got Rob and Tim, and I'm stumbling over my words because that little announcement that comes out, listener, that you didn't get to hear today, fortunately, from Tim's computer blows me away. That
every time
we got this technical issue where we got to hear that we're recording today. Thanks for letting us know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got nothing. I don't know how to turn
We know,
it off.
Tim.
So,
Yeah,
Tim is once again taking down our professionalism and knocked us off our game, but that's all right. But with that being said, guys, how are you today?
Very well.
Yeah, how about you?
No complaints, man. It's got some nice weather out here today for the
warming up.
time.
Yeah, that was some brutal weather, huh?
Yeah, I mean, as you guys know, we were recording this after the weekend that pretty much took out the entire country. And now, being the Northeast, if you wait long enough, things change. I think we're in the mid 50s today here in Connecticut.
That's right.
Crazy.
Flowers are blooming.
Wow.
It could be soon. But anyway, nobody cares about our weather. Nobody cares about our moans and groans about the cold. They're here to meet our guest. And I want to welcome to the show today, Jacob Kane. Jacob Kane's an independent consultant, but with a great backstory that he's going to share with us today in the MS space. Yeah. And we're really going to talk about a whole lot. It was meant to be go to market, but it sounds like it's go to market and then get out. Maybe today's story. That might be the episode title. Go to market and get out, baby.
By somebody who's done it.
Yeah. Jacob, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me here. I'm honored to be amongst such an illustrious team.
Illustrious or notorious, it usually goes one way or the other, right?
I'll take it either way.
But Jacob, let's kick things off and let's talk a little bit about your history and how you ended up in the managed services world, and then we'll get into some of the things that you've done and seen, because it was some good stuff.
Sure. So I wound up in the managed services world like a lot of us, kind of by accident. Did not start out as an IT person, and I remember started working in IT shortly after college, and I remember telling my girlfriend at the time, I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up, but I know one thing for sure, it's not IT. So fast forward 25 years later, and here I still am, as I like to think for people of my generation where we didn't have the IT and IS degrees, that IT is often the career for smart people who failed to plan. So, I did not have a plan. I started working originally at a .com, in the 90s when anyone with a pulse could get a job there. And then was the first hire at an IT consulting company. Figured that would go out of business quickly. But the owner there was a phenomenal salesperson who was very much in that consulting realm of what is it you need done? Yes, we're great at that. Walk out of the room. How are we going to do that? So I got exposed to a ton of different things. But along those trying different stuff, we started a small business support group. Found that I really, really love the idea of recurring revenue and hitting singles and getting to work with business owners on the other side, right? Rather than we're mostly dealing with other large enterprises where it's a lot more political agenda. When you're dealing with the owners, everyone's agreed, right? You just want what's best for that business, not for their department or for their budget, or their agenda. And I loved that. So I found that was really where I wanted to work and built a practice doing that. We actually bought another small MSP of a guy who just opportunistic acquisition. I'd known the owner. It was about a 7-person IT provider, and he called me one day and he said, if I have to fix one more darn BlackBerry, I'm throwing it out the window. I'm done. Like, I'm out. Just whatever you want. Like, just take this away. Grew that business to a few $1 million a year, and that was really what I loved to do. And then that company was going through a bunch of changes, and I had a great relationship with the day-to-day manager of that IT group, Dave Cava, who's been a guest before and probably a lot of your audience knows, service manager. We kind of made a pact. Originally wasn't that we'd go into business together, but that the other one would let we'd let each other know before we quit, so we wouldn't leave the other high and dry. We're like, don't leave me here by myself. I want you.
That's
But
awesome.
originally our plans were more, I think
That is
Dave was
funny.
considering park ranger. I was, just gonna go backpacking, but
I think we could do a show on things that people wanted to do if they could get out of IT, right?
Right.
We all have that moment where it's
Easy.
like, what
Easily.
fantasy can I get involved
Yeah.
into if I get
Yeah.
out of this? That's great.
absolutely. But Dave had a slightly more practical idea, which was that we should just start an MSP together. And so Proactive was born. This was in May 2007. We had kind of took a little while of trying to negotiate a more peaceful exit, but wound up doing a bit of the Jerry Maguire leave. Started up with a handful of clients and people who wanted to work with us. It was a pretty exciting day. We divvied up our top client list, and Dave and I split that list up and went door to door, walking around Manhattan that first day. And I think we got verbal commitments on something like $700,000 a year of revenue on our first day of business.
That's
So it
awesome.
was just showing up at people's office and saying, "Hey, I've got news for you." And we were off to the races, and that went very, very quickly in the beginning. And then we continued to grow, but this was also 2007, then we hit 2008. Things got a little slower. We were working a lot with investment firms, but probably, at that time. And, we're still generally growing around 10% a year, but I'd say, our first handful of years in business, we're doing that, but it took us a little while to really hit that growth stride. We're doing it year after year, but kind of the, 10 to 15%.
So Jacob, before we kind of move on here, in that 2007, 8, 9 territory, was that T&M? Was that, what kind of business model was that?
Sure. Probably, I bet if I looked back at those numbers, there's way more T&M than I would like to admit to myself. I think that there was probably, it was all ongoing support, but
Wow.
we
Okay.
had,
Yeah,
so it wasn't a ton of project work, it was ongoing relationships. We knew that. We had that down. A lot of other probably block hours, and we did a lot, I remember at that point, of what we call the monitoring and maintenance plus hourly. Like we were dipping our toe right in that
Yes.
services, so we'd get our tool set on there and a few other things, maybe at $20, $30, $40 an endpoint, probably something like that, maybe some backups, and then all their support hourly. And I actually held on to hourly way too long. We had probably a lot more hourly, for a while. I remember sort of hearing that, the arguments for it. Our revenues were still fairly predictable. So the idea of like predictable revenues didn't capture my attention as much, because it's like, okay, we know with our clients going to be about in this range.
Yeah.
What really did it for me on getting rid of the hourly was as we tried to scale our account management team, right? It was, you'd send out the invoices for the month, and then it's like 3, 2, 1, phone rings.
Yeah. How can you justify this?
Right. And we started to then have accounts that weren't managed by me or Dave. And we're trying to like train other people in how to deal with hourly billing disputes, and realizing that if you were trying to wrap this out, like the if-then decision tree, was like something from A Beautiful Mind. Right? And we had really smart, capable people, moving up into that role. And my feeling was like, if they can't get this, like there's no hope. We just can't scale it. And by that point, I'd already started to give, I couldn't handle the disputes. I gave a lot of clients red line power, where I just said, I'm not going to argue about the bill. If you've got a complaint, just cross it out, write what you think is fair, but pay it today. And if you do it too many times, we will fire you. But I'm not spending an hour of my time talking about why an antivirus removal took, or virus removal took.
Wow. Jacob, how did that work? That is a scary thing.
Yeah.
Did you find most people honored your system and didn't take advantage of you?
Yeah, they really did. I mean, partially we looked at like what we spent on billing disputes, and it was like 0.5% of revenue was disputed, right? The
Okay.
total dollars wasn't that big, right? I mean, I just felt like if every single person did it. Now, it also helped. We were dealing mostly with investment firms.
Okay,
in-
at this point, okay.
in New York. I mean, right. And they, they're not as budget sensitive, but I think, and we still had relationships with most of them, right? I'm not sure it would have worked as well if they had been sold by a non-owner business development rep and then went on to an account manager who maybe turned over a couple of times, just again, not as a knock, right? Those things are inevitable as your
Yeah.
business scales.
Yeah.
But, and we had a lot of the sale process was really about finding the right match. And a lot of that was cultural. A lot of our sale was laying out where our priorities were, and trying to get clients who are a cultural fit. This is what's good about us. This is what's bad about us. We would highlight our faults and say, if those things are important, you don't hire us. We want to work that out now.
Well, and I think that right there is probably one of the most important things of a sales cycle, is telling people that, look, nobody's perfect. You go whether you're an MSP or just any small business in general, when you're trying to sell your product or service, people need to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And it's not going to be for everybody, and that's okay. But I think what made you guys so unique was you found your niche and you just hit it and you got after it. So that's always been really impressive to me, just how you guys were able to corner that market.
Yeah. So, I'd like to take a little step back here for the listeners. So you guys were in New York City. You and Dave were in New York City. Tell everybody, like, when did you kind of move into the niche that you moved into? How did you move? And then what was the growth in like revenue numbers that you guys were able to achieve over your time to, really be able to do that?
Sure. So it started out when we launched the business. Our goal was not to be pigeonholed as a financial focused MSP. We wanted to be all things to all people. This shows what we knew at the time.
Roll credits.
But a lot of it was, our relationships tended to be in that space. And we looked at, 6 months into business, 85% of our revenue was financial services.
Got it.
18 months into business, 85% of our revenue was financial services. And we also had, the relationship directly with sales. And one of the things that really crystallized it for us is we actually started getting a bunch of referrals from Goldman Sachs, who would introduce us to some of their hedge fund clients and say, you should really go. Jacob and Dave are great guys, and they're hedge fund people, right?
Well,
and
how did you do that? You can't gloss over that. That's
because I'm going to really jump in here real quickly as a guy from the other side of the border. We spent half our life trying to penetrate the hedge fund market in Stamford and that Greenwich area. And you're over here going, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, just a throwaway line. Yeah, Goldman Sachs,
But that was our final wake up call. Like, whatever Goldman's, if they want to say I'm a hedge fund guy, I'm a hedge fund guy, right? If they want to say I wear a tutu, I'll put one on.
That's right.
Right. I'm whatever they want. And I'd worked with some hedge funds before. I knew those people. So, but you're right, Brian. I mean, there's a lot about sort of the hedge fund world is more true this than most industries, but I think it's out there in a lot of different verticals and geographies of what I call being part of the club, right? It's hard to get into the club. And there's a lot you have to do to stay there. But once you're in, you're in. And it's generally not that much about the technology. I think people, when they look at vertical specialization, get scared off sometimes. They say, well, I don't know. There's nothing really special about the technology for accountants or for, lawyers or for hedge funds. Or they go the other way and say, oh, it's so specialized that I don't know it. Like, it's generally not that different, but the culture, right? A lot of it is about understanding the culture and the connections and having a few talking points and a few choices that go there.
And so some confidence too. If you can cut through all the minutia and you can get to the point the way they like to see the point, that's the win, right?
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it is even just about support, right? So part of it, they always say, like in creative writing, the show don't tell. right? Come up with examples of where it is. And we all have this for sales, right? Where you're going to say, we have great service and we understand you, right? Gets you nowhere. But you want, if you can tell a story about those and tie it to their industry, it's helpful, right? So we'd come up with those examples of, we understand that as an investment firm, something else that might just be, oh, that's a new laptop deployment, might not be that big of a deal. But if that laptop is going to your investor relations person, which is who goes out and raises money at a hedge fund, right? If that's for an investor relations person the week before they go on a roadshow, then we know there's nothing more important to your firm than that laptop getting done right. So it's us sort of demonstrating what we're going to do about that service, but a few kind of like keywords or something on their process where they say, now I get it, right? And now, do I want to take the risk that we might blow, that person might be going out, they're raising $100 million at a time, right? Do I want anything that might interfere with that because someone else, the general MSP, doesn't get it? They just say, oh, well, we'll deliver it on Friday, and if we have to,
we'll get you one. Don't worry about it.
I saved you $600 on this off-market laptop.
Right. But yeah, a lot of those relationships. Sorry, Lana, you guys are so good at getting people talking. But I'm saying, we knew some of those people, but it also goes back to what Tim was saying, being very honest about what we did and didn't do, and not taking on too many of them. So we got that relationship with Goldman that was largely Dave and I knew some of the people there. Then we got reintroduced. The friend of ours who actually was like a former colleague of Dave's recommended us to an end client that was working with Gold, whatever. But they knew us when we got in there. But when we went in, and we thought we were done for, in that pitch, because Goldman's, of course, they're going to blackball us. We're a startup. But we were also very honest by saying, hey, you're right. We've only been in business for whatever it was at the time, 5 months, right? But we've done it before at other places, right? We're going to have certain things that we don't have in terms of the size and breadth, but in return, you're going to get the attention of the principals, right? What are our pros and cons, and being very, very clear about that. And that came in even bigger. Years later, I opened up the relationship with sort of the second biggest of the referral sources for that, Morgan Stanley. And for there, I worked on getting in there.
I don't know if you ever heard of them.
Actually went down.
I don't know if you ever heard of them. Small company.
Yeah. And we finally got our first lead from them, and I turned it down. We went through the sales process and became one of the finalists. And as it was reported back from my referral source, he said, so I talked to them. I said, how'd it go? Because it's our first time recommending Proactive. He said, it was great. Met with a bunch of them, met with Pro. What do you think of Proactive? Really liked them. Great guys, like Jacob, team seemed good. He's like, so you're going to go with them? Nope. Why not? I don't think they'd be a good fit. What makes you say that? They told me they wouldn't. And we turned down, it was really hard to turn down that lead. But what it did is, I always looked at it as, leads can come and go, but lead sources are that's the magic. Yeah. And the number one thing your referral source wants is not a gift card or a bottle of wine, and those things are nice, but is effectively not to be embarrassed, They don't want complaints. And from then on, if that source felt confident that if we didn't feel we're going to knock the ball out of the park, we would let that pitch go by. And when we went to them, we didn't go ever and try and say, here I am, I'm a startup, I want all your clients, or I want all your best clients. We had a very focused message. We said, we know we have a lot of people competing for this. We want this sliver of your clients that maybe other people aren't servicing so well, Give us those, and we will give 110% and make those clients happy and let us prove ourselves.
Oh, that's
okay.
That's one of the better stories that we've heard in a while, as far as Goldman Sachs followed up by Morgan Stanley.
So Jacob, go ahead, Tim. That's
no, go ahead.
How was it? Circle of influence? Was it just going to networking events? Was it did you have to pay them?
No, you don't. One nice thing about working sort of with the hedge fund, I can't pay them. I don't have enough money to pay these guys. They don't need my money. They don't need my stakes. They don't need
Yeah.
they don't need it from me. They need, their satisfaction. The Goldman one was kind of like we knew the people there.
Just kind of built it up.
Because the company my old firm had bought did some work with Goldman because the owner's wife worked there, and so he knew him. So I met at that when we bought him, but they wouldn't work with us, whatever, at that company. But they knew me and and knew Dave somewhat, and they were happy to work with us as individuals. The Morgan Stanley one was interesting because there was about centers of influence, and I wanted to lay it out because everyone goes knocking on the front door trying to get in, knocking on the front door.
Yeah.
And what happened is I'd work with a bunch of clients who I knew worked, with Morgan Stanley, or even with the other similar, we call the prime brokerage groups. And oftentimes when you're new with a client, there's like a honeymoon period. You've just gotten them set up in their office. You've just done their onboarding. Right. You guys are the best, and they say, wow, I'm so happy we chose you. You guys are the best. Like, if there's anything I can do for you. And I would say, well, who are you working with? Which bank? And I knew the people were there. And if someone said, okay, we'll work with them, I'd say, great. What you can do for me is the next time you're talking to this person or this person, just mention that you work with Proactive and you're happy. And I did this for about, 9 months until I got a call from Morgan Stanley that said, when are you going to come in and give us a presentation on who you are? Like, everyone else in your space is knocking down the door to get in here. But it's our job to know who all the vendors are. And for whatever reason, we just keep hearing from people about how great you are.
Jacob.
That's awesome.
Wow. Okay.
Story. Okay.
Awesome.
So, Jacob, how big did your company get?
So we got to just north of 10 million. We crossed it, I think, on like December 22nd or something of our final year. We just got past there.
Okay. And did you have a big sales department? Did you have a giant marketing department, like to get these, all these hedge funds? How did that work for you guys?
No. So we had it's always hard to divvy up your time because I feel like as an owner, you could say like, I spent 50% of my time on this and 50% on that and another 50% on that because I just was in all the time. But probably about times it was more or less, but maybe half my time. Again, I did have a salesperson for a little while. He didn't sell. That was my fault. I kept trying to compete with him and ask him to sell like an owner, and that was pointless, but I didn't really know how to fix it then. So it was really, really me. We did invest in a website with a nice logo rebrand. But didn't do SEO. It was also earlier times, but the main thing there, what we wanted is like the Tiffany's box factor, right? The emotional response of the first split second when you see the logo and look and feel of the homepage, right? To me, like that was all that matters. And then doing a nice design for a proposal just to make it feel like a more upmarket brand in terms of the design.
Okay.
And what was written basically could have just been Lorem Ipsum. It didn't really matter.
Yeah.
And for us, COIs were the magic, right? There are different versions, and I feel like sales is always divided into hunters and farmers, and
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I looked at it a different way. I always say we're trapping. We're not hunting or farming. There's a different way. We're trapping. Right? We're putting things out there in different places. Like we're leading those breadcrumbs for Morgan Stanley to find. Where hedge funds open up a lot and go out of business a lot. When they're opening up, everyone wants to be their friend. When they're going out of business, no one wants to be their friend. The only times I ever took clients or prospects out for a steak was when their fund was shutting down, right? Because that's when no one wants to be their friend and they're all going to go get another job. Somewhere else, right? You want us to send someone to your house to set up your home computer for you to help you with your job search? No problem. That's on me. Let me know when you get to your next place. Great use of a couple hours of a text time. Of laying those things out there, keeping everyone informed, right? When you do get that referral, again, it was less knowing you're not going to screw it up, but also making sure my referral source knew what was going on with the sale. And afterwards, if that client was ever mad, I always wanted my referral source to know about it from me
Yeah.
before they heard about it from them, right? So it
Get
was
ahead of it.
working those elements and then getting our message super down. So we had, when we did our rebrand, I played a game to limit myself and handcuff myself, which was we had a network diagram in our proposal, and I had our graphic design people do it as a JPEG that looked really pretty, but I couldn't edit. And so that was my handcuffs. I did one version with redundant firewalls and one version that had redundant firewall optional. That was the only difference. And so I had those two versions, and I just said, that's what I'm going to sell. And if it doesn't fit within this, I'm either not going to sell it or I'm not going to spend the time doing a customized proposal, right? Because you have to get super efficient with your time. It's not about the number of, when you have one person half time doing that.
Right.
And so it became really, really good about getting that discipline of getting the right kind of lead, the right kind of sale, right, of what it is. And I think what I found is, right, when I could edit it, there were all these reasons why I needed to tweak this or tweak that, or
Right.
thought what it was. But instead, we were getting about 8 or 9 inbounds a month the last few years. And so if I could get 8 or 9 inbounds a month and get a proposal done in 20 minutes or less and win 3 of them a month, right? That was our goal. We didn't want to win more than 3 of them a month because we couldn't onboard more than 3 of them a month. If we started winning more than that, we had to raise our prices. So that was kind of the goal.
It's awesome to have it that well spelled out and knowing and staying under control while you do that too, because obviously there's that part of us that when sales start coming in, you just want to keep hitting that accelerator, but you do got to look at it objectively from the other side and say, can we handle it? Are we going to tarnish the brand? Are we going to break our relationships? And when you've got such a strong center of influence like that, certainly reputation means more than any one contract, right? So kudos, man. That's awesome.
And 2 of our last 3
lesson.
years in business, we went out to our top referral sources and had to say, we really appreciate your support. Please slow it down. We're gonna overheat and not do a great job for you if you keep this up.
Wow, could you imagine that?
Yeah.
Like what credibility you would go up in my eyes if you came and told me that.
But also, sorry, I was just going to say, but also the fact of, you were in an industry that people came and went pretty quick. The fact that you would spend time with these people upon exit, that in itself, like that's brilliant, because they're either going to go somewhere else, catch on, probably be a higher level person wherever they go, or they're going to start another company. Where are they going to go? Right back to you.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So we're probably going to have to bring Jacob back for another call, because we had a whole other topic we wanted to get into the M&A life today. But unfortunately, I think we are running out of time. This was great information, Jacob. When for me to recap for a moment, things that I really thought about when going through this is build your center of influence, get those people that are on board, really make sure you're treating the people that are closest to you, bring you those referrals the strongest. Everybody talks about how this is a referral game and how they struggle to get past new acquisition challenges, in hiring salespeople. But the reality is, if you just go out to those customers the way you did and really treat them well and be honest with them, you shouldn't have to do a whole lot else. And we were blessed to be in an industry where if you could make 3 sales a month, that's awesome, usually from the average MSP to continue to expand out. So you cracked the code, my friend. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's very impressive. Very impressive, sir.
Thank you. It was fun. Very
I'll
fun.
admit, I wish I heard this 10 years ago, but that's
as you can tell,
over there.
and the other theme of that is, with those messages, making sure you got the really, really clear message so that all those COIs understand, and those clients, like, what about you is the differentiator, other than, Brian's a great guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, our people.
My
favorite nothing line. Our people are what makes us different. Okay, well, do your people ever leave? Yeah. All right.
And the counterintuitive thing, I think everyone's afraid of throwing away what they consider a perfectly good lead, you know, by
Agreed.
narrowing the focus. I'm sure you hear that all the time.
Oh yeah.
And I think one of the probably the biggest things you talk about transitions is the leap of faith to start turning away perfectly good leads. And what I found was the narrower my target got, the greater my lead flow got. It is counterintuitive, but if you
Riches
can
are the
kind of
niches,
make
right?
that leap of faith to do it, you know, like the right leads will come to you.
No.
It's awesome.
Very good. You know, and with that, we're going to kind of close it up for this episode. We will definitely be doing a part 2 because your M&A story is just, it's a little cliffhanger for everybody. That's another good story. Well, Jacob, I really appreciate you being on the call with us here today. For anybody that is looking to get in touch with Jacob, we will include his LinkedIn profile with the podcast. Also, everybody, this episode will be up on mspbusinessschool.com to include YouTube. So please like, subscribe, hit that bell, make a comment, all the good stuff. We really appreciate it. Brian, Tim, Jacob, it's been a pleasure today, my friends.
Thank you.
Jacob, thank
Thanks
you.
for
No, I
coming
had a
on.
lot of fun.
We had a lot
Thanks,
of fun
guys.
as well.
Yeah.